Please call me Ellie. I work as a senior manager with FIRKI team. I'll help you to navigate through this webinar today. We will now watch a short video that will help us introduce the FIRKI website and its features. I request Balamas to again share the screen and show us the video.
The FIRKI website offers a diverse set of content for teachers to support them in their professional development as well as in their classrooms, and is free of charge and easy to use. In order to access the portal, type firki.co and you will be directed to the FIRKI website. To register on FIRKI, fill in a brief registration form. You can also sign in through your Google account. You will have to use your email ID in order to create an account on our website. This account is again free to create and use. Once you create your account and log in with your credentials, you will be directed to the dashboard. The dashboard would have notifications related to your profile, course progress, time spent, and your FIRKI discussion groups. To access different pedagogical courses, you can click on the courses link on the top left of the screen. The courses page allows you to choose courses based on difficulty level and category. The courses are also available in different regional languages. Feel free to browse the different courses we have in our catalog using the search bar above. Each FIRKI course is designed using the FITS model that stands for Feel, Imagine, Do, and Share. The Feel section of the course helps you identify your current practices. The Imagine section defines the practices that one should follow to improve teaching and learning outcomes. A detailed description of strategies are highlighted under the Do section that one can implement in the classroom and with their students. At last, the Share section talks about ways in which one can share their learnings with each other. Each course has also a set of reflection questions as part of the assessment section. Along with the course material, each FIRKI course also contains a learning circle plan and journal pages. A learning circle plan helps the coaches and mentors conducting the offline learning circles to discuss and share learnings from the course. A journal page summarizes the course with important points. We are adding new courses every month, so keep watching this space. Next up, we have the webinars page that is also accessible from the top left of the screen. On this page, you will find information about the upcoming webinars. If you scroll down, you will find a bunch of resources from our older webinars. These resources will include video recordings of the webinar itself, notes from the webinar, the presentation used by our speaker, and other resources on the topic covered. Do feel free to browse this section at your leisure. The final page to look out for is the resources page, also to be found at the top left corner of your screen. This page houses and will house resources from several of our partner organizations, such as the British Council, Khan Academy, Storyweaver, Pratham Books, and more. We are in the process of adding to the list, and you can easily filter resources by partners, grades or standard, and the subject of instruction. We hope you find value in using these resources in your practice as teachers and educators. Finally, you can find the FIRKI app on the Play Store and can access these courses, resources, and webinars through your phone. So download our app and stay connected to teaching and learning on the go.
Thank you, Balamas, for that. Dear participants, I really hope that the video helped you in knowing more about FIRKI. If you have any doubts, you can write to us at contactfirki@teachforindia.org. So it's 6 o'clock. With that, let's move on to the webinar at hand today. Thank you all of you for taking your time and joining us in this discussion and designing this and other webinars throughout the year. FIRKI team is hoping that we can disseminate meaningful knowledge and skills that takes us closer to a goal of improving the quality of education in our Indian classrooms. This session, led by Sujeta Bhatt, who is the CEO of Dream a Dream, and Vishal Talreja, co-founder and trustee of Dream a Dream, will touch on the impact of the pandemic on education systems and invite each of us to take a breath, a moment, a pause, and imagine the most compassionate response we could offer to young people during this crisis. As this will be a process-oriented facilitative session, we request you to join with a pen, a paper, and all of your imagination. With that, let me introduce our great speakers for the day. We have Sujeta, who has over 19 years of work experience having worked both in the corporate and social sector. Since joining Dream a Dream full-time in 2010, she has been instrumental in scaling the impact of the organization from 3,000 children to over 3 million children today. Her strengths include understanding child adversity, organization, culture building, and impact assessment of life skills program. We also have Vishal Talreja. Vishal co-founded Dream a Dream along with 11 others. Vishal has co-authored a paper along with Dr. David Pearson and Dr. Fiona Kennedy titled The Life Skills Assessment Scale, Measuring the Life Skills of Disadvantaged Children in the Developing World. He believes that if we can reimagine learning to develop empathy, creative thinking, problem solving, and collaborative working skills amongst young people, they'll be able to overcome adversity and flourish in this fast changing world. We welcome both of you very warmly to this webinar. Thank you so much for joining. Before we move to the webinar, I'll quickly take all our participants through a few norms. I shared a few of them in the beginning. One is use raise hands button again if you want to share something. We will reach out to you if you're facing any challenge. We'll reach out to you when we see that you have raised hands. You can keep typing in all your questions in the Q&A box. I'll be curating those questions and asking them at the end to our speakers. They'll be answering that at the end. Also remember that learning new things is slightly difficult at the beginning. So please make sure that you take notes throughout this webinar and also discuss your learning with your peers at the end after this webinar. We also have Anu from our team who's taking notes of this entire webinar. A copy of this which will be available for all of you along with the recordings and all the other resources used. This will be uploaded on our portal. You can check that a few days later. So that I think it was a very, very long introduction. Thank you so much. That brings me to the end of my introduction. I hope all of you have a great evening. Over to speakers now.
Thank you, Eri. Thank you for that warm welcome and also for this platform. I'm also seeing, the vastness of it for the first time. I've heard about FIRCI and I'm really, congratulations on the great work you're doing with this platform. So I wanted to start off by really sharing a little bit about my own process or my own experience of when this pandemic came and, the COVID-19 crisis has hit us. And I'll mostly use English, maybe a little bit of Hindi, but let me know if you need me to mix it up a bit more. So this, I vividly remember it was kind of the last week of March, and for us, it's the financial year is April to March. So organizationally at Dream a Dream, and we align it with the academic year. And it was so sudden that when the lockdown was announced, and we were really so prepared for how we wanted the next year to be, how we wanted to engage with children, how we wanted to build life skills, how we wanted to scale. There was just so much clarity and enthusiasm. And suddenly it was like I had banged myself against a wall. And for many weeks, at least 2 or 3 weeks, I was just still. I didn't do anything. I didn't, jump into any kind of response. I just went still and I was doing my art. I was doing coloring and drawing and just staying with my thoughts and all the emotions that were coming up. And in that moment of stillness and pause and just reflection is where this idea came up for Vishal and I, that can this be an opportunity? Can we use this crisis right now to reimagine some of these systemic issues that have been a part of education for so long and which actually were amplified as part when the pandemic hit? And can we use this right now as an opportunity to really imagine something different and to respond in a different way than we have done in the past? And that's when we launched like a global campaign. It's called the What If campaign. And at our end, we're saying, what if kindness is the new normal? That when we think about going back to school, when we think about young people coming back into the education system, what if kindness is the new normal? So that is our invitation today. We would like to invite all of you into this space of pause and imagination. And hopefully we can all come up with ideas and, kind of provocation around what can be our response, what can be our most compassionate response for our young people in this crisis, and how can we imagine that and make that happen. So that's a bit of the context. I'll give it to Vishal. Before I hand it to him, also Vishal and I are, we're married to each other. And because we live in the same house is why there's no social distancing. I think that's something we need to explain explicitly.
Thank you, Sucheta. I see a message saying that people are not able to hear us well. Are you able to hear us okay now?
Yeah, it's clear. We can hear you clearly.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I started Dream a Dream about 20 years back. And of course, it's come a long way. And I've had many, I would say, encounters and experiences with children and young people that now I've seen grown up in front of my eyes and become adults. And I want to kind of just share about this one young man. I met him when he was probably 8 years old, and living in a boys' home for runaway boys. He had run away from home. And he joined our life skills program. He used to play hockey with us. He was brilliant. He was a very short kid, obviously stunted, but used to love playing hockey. Played a great game of hockey. Went on to finish his school, went to college, continued to play hockey and football and cricket. Took on a game called floorball, which is something very new. I hadn't heard of it. And started playing floorball, got into the state team. And I had lost contact with him. I used to hear his good stories from his colleagues and friends in the shelter home. And he reached out to me about 3-4 months back, just before the pandemic, saying, he's had a good job, but he's going to quit his job because the job is not allowing him to practice for his floorball games. And he was very clear that he wants to focus on floorball and find a job that will give him the flexibility. So he quit his job, and then the lockdown happened and the pandemic hit. And his life just turned topsy-turvy. So for the last 3 months, because of the lockdown, of course, there's no floorball practice, but he's also been struggling to just make ends meet, pay his rent and take care of his food. The job he was supposed to get, they've of course deferred it indefinitely now. And as the lockdown started lifting in Bangalore, he's literally on a bicycle every day, traveling from neighborhood to neighborhood, asking people for jobs. And I think I go back to Sucheta's invitation again here, that as a society, when we have young people with so much passion and big dreams to do big things for themselves, how can we call upon ourselves to be more kind in the way we respond to young people like this young man? And that's one of the reasons why I continue to do what I do. Yeah.
Thank you, Vishal. So to get us started and really get us in sync, we thought we could start with an invocation. It's a poem. It's written by a colleague of ours. His name is Pavan Chaturvedi. And when we started internally at Dream a Dream talking about the What If campaign, many of you might have seen the links which have been shared. This poem was inspired from that, that exploration. So when Pavan was thinking about the same question, what if, he wrote this poem, and with his permission, I read it out to you today. I'll read it out in Hindi first, and then Vishal will make a quick translation. शब्दों का जंजाल भीतर मेरे मन के पल पल भुजाल उठा रहा, आईना भी अब नजर झुका के झूठी मुस्कुराहट दिखा रहा। मेरे भीतर दबे हुए प्रश्नों के जवाब मुझसे मांग रहा, लेकिन दिल इस बार भी झूठी तसल्ली दिला रहा। परेशान हूँ, हाँ हूँ मैं परेशान, ये देख सोचकर क्यों दोहरी नियत वाला इंसान क्यों झूठ बोलती है ये जुबान। मुझ में है जो इंसानियत, हो क्या उसकी नियत। मैं जो भी आगे काम करूं होगी क्या उसकी अहमियत। परिवार के लिए बेच आया खुद को कोई, 2 दिन का राशन लिए बेच आया मोबाइल कोई। एक पंखा संग बड़ी शंका लिए, जीते जी मर आया कोई। ये देख सुनकर सहमे से होंगे बच्चे सब, जाने कौन साथ छोड़ दे उनका कब। ये सोच समझकर माँ से लिपट कर सोते बच्चे अब, हादसों से अक्सर खो देते मासूमियत वो सब। जिम्मेदारी के आगे अक्सर जाते शिक्षा के अक्सर बिखर, किसको देंगे वे अहमियत, किसको दूं मैं अहमियत, तू ही बता क्या हो मेरी नियत। सोचकर एक वक्त भोजन मिलेगा, क्या नामांकन बढ़ेगा सरकारी शिक्षा तंत्रों का, या फिर तंत्र उलझेगा उनकी उपस्थिति और उनके जीवन के संघर्ष में। लौट आएंगे जब वे स्कूल, जो गए बचपन अपना भूल, फिर वही सवाल पनपेगा, कौन उनको सपने दिखाना सिखाएगा। क्या बन पाएंगे हम उम्मीद उनकी, थमी हुई थी जिंदगी जिनकी। प्यार का एहसास जो चुके भूल, उम्र से पहले हो चुके बड़े जो, जगाएंगे एहसास उनमें अब कैसे, जो खिलखिलाए वो पहले जैसे। लौटा पाए हम उनकी मासूमियत, कैसी हो शिक्षा की नियत।
Thank you. I'm just going to do a quick English translation, not as good as what Pawan has written in Hindi. A cacophony of words rise deep in my mind, creating disruptions moment on moment. The mirror too hides, showing its false smile. Questions buried deep inside seek answers from me. As my aching heart falsely comforts me. Concerned I am, yes, concerned. Seeing, feeling in me this two-faced human speaking lies from its tongue. The human within, I wonder, what's his intention? The work I do from here on, does it have any meaning anymore? Someone sold his body to save his family, and yet another sold his mobile for a few grains of rice and a fan to soothe his family in searing heat. With doubts, he chose death while alive. Hearing this, children embrace fear, not knowing which loved one they will lose next. Worrying, they embrace them, mothers a lot more. In news and events, they slowly lose their innocence. Under the weight of growing up too soon, they forget to spell education. To whom should they give importance? To whom should I give importance? Say, my God, what's indeed my purpose? In hope of a single meal, enrollments in school shot up. Will the same game play again? Will I get tied in the same knots again? In their presence, in their life struggles, the same questions will arise again. Will there be hope whose life has gone awry for a moment more? When they return to school, those who lost their childhood, the question rises again, who will help fulfill their dreams? Can we become their hope again? Those whose life is on hold, those who can't feel love anymore, those who became adults before their time, how will we ignite their passion? Those who blossomed before, can they return to their innocence? What indeed is the purpose of this education?
Thank you, Vishal. Like I said in the beginning, that for us, this reimagination and this call to invoke our most compassionate self comes from a place of pause, comes from a place of being still, being with ourselves, and just taking a moment to take a breath, to get in touch with ourselves, and ask that question from somewhere deep within us. So to just facilitate for us to find that space inside of us, and the space of stillness is inside, it's not around us, but it's inside of us. And to find that, we'll share a link with you. And if you can just, if it's possible for you to access that link. So if you can click this, the link that is on the chat, it will take you to a coloring page. And for the next 6 minutes, we're at 8:18. Let's just color, right? All of us together, we've all gone through this experience. We're all trying to make sense of this crisis. So let's just take the next 6 minutes to just pause and just color and just be still inside of us. As you're selecting your colors, just take a deep breath in and let it out. There's no rush. Let yourself slow down. Just feel your breath coming in and let it out. You don't have to complete it. Just have to use it to become slower. Just take a pause and feel your breath. Just a few more seconds, maybe half a minute more. Feel your breath and feel yourself slowing down. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I hope I'm seeing a lot of comments that you also tried other mandalas, and that's, that's great. This is just to build our capacity to just take a moment of pause and to take a moment of stillness. And with that, Prashant.
Thank you, Sucheta. This was the stillness that we at Dream a Dream took when the country went into lockdown and schools closed. There was one part of us which kind of said, it's time to panic and react and do something quickly and help our children. But there was another part of us which was inside of us that said, let's be still and see what's coming up, what's emerging for us. And we started talking to young people, mostly from marginalized communities in Bangalore that we work with, to understand what has been the impact of this lockdown on them and their families. And what came up, of course, a lot of us in education would already know that, but it was important to kind of understand the complete impact of this lockdown on children. We all know there has been a learning loss. With children not being in school, there is continues to be learning loss. But beyond that, children are going through one of their most important life lessons right now. So there's a lot more happening than just a learning loss. One of the things we experienced is because families had lost income and livelihood, children had become caregivers in the family. They had become adults much earlier than their age. As families were going through a sense of hopelessness and helplessness, many children and families started taking on adult roles, taking care of younger siblings, looking after food for them, also ensuring that there is some income coming into the family. There was loss of dignity, as we saw millions of families start walking from cities to small towns and villages with children. Children were confused and worried about why is this happening to them, why are they walking such long distances, and that created a sense of loss of dignity, to be treated as second-class citizens in your own country without being provided any support had a deep traumatic impact on many children. Uh, there was there have been instances of heightened cases of violence and abuse as children have been stuck at home and in neighborhoods. We know there have been news items talking about it. There has been a higher impact on girls, as girls have had to take on more important roles in the family. Um, we're also worried that as schools reopen and as children start coming back to school, families may have to prioritize education for some children over others, and it's that girls' education is going to be deprioritized. There has been high levels of stress and anxiety, which has been caused by tonloads of information, much of it misinformation, fake news. Children have been asking us questions like, what will happen to my parents? Will they be alive or will they die? What happens when they die? What happens to my school? What happens to examinations? Will I get admission into university now? So high levels of anxiety, but not much clarity and not much stability that's been coming in the messaging and the narratives around them. Combination of all this has resulted in sustained trauma. And we all know from our own experiences of having worked with kids from marginalized backgrounds that in the early years of growing up, 0 to 10 years, when children experience adverse circumstances such as lack of food or nutrition, neglect, lack of emotional care, in extreme cases abuse, violence, being abandoned, orphaned, it impacts children's ability to achieve developmental milestones, resulting in what we call failure to thrive or stunting. And this pandemic will create many traumatic experiences for children, which might have impact in the long term and in some cases lifelong. So the impact of this pandemic has been many-fold in many areas beyond the learning loss itself. And we have to recognize the fact that then schools, teachers, educators, we cannot go back to business as usual when we come out of this pandemic and restart schools and children start coming back into schools. What this pandemic has also shown us is the already existing systemic challenges and structural challenges that have existed in our education system. And this has started coming to the forefront. We knew these challenges existed, but this pandemic has brought it to the forefront. We talk about how education, the role of education is to prepare children for a future, for an uncertain, complex future, give them skills and capacities to do well and succeed in the future. Well, the future is already here, and our children were not prepared. So it kind of puts into question the role of the education system itself, and this shift from a knowledge, information-focused education to maybe a more capacities, skills, life skills, social emotional competencies kind of based system. For the first time globally across the world, governments have had to prioritize well-being of the entire population versus economic development and economic growth. And we have all known that the primary purpose of education traditionally has been to prepare our kids for a workforce, for a workplace. But now, with this new reality of the climate crisis and the pandemic, well-being is taking center stage. So are our education systems prepared to now invest in also focusing on well-being of children, which goes beyond economic growth and economic development? This pandemic has also shown the inherent systemic inequities that have existed in education systems across the world. We were talking to a young girl, 8th grader, whose school had started online classes, and she managed to convince her father to give her 10 rupees so she could buy an internet pack and get onto her classes. She was 5 minutes late to the class, and the teacher marked her absent and didn't let her attend the class. I know this is a stray case, but it puts into perspective that are we taking a lot of our offline prejudices and biases into now in virtual world, or are we really taking a step back and thinking about who am I and what is in my being now when I'm engaging with children in a virtual world, where children are entering a virtual world from spaces that are not necessarily designed for learning, in cramped homes with noise, with people walking around, people moving around, with hunger being predominant in your thought, and yet you're choosing to be in an online class. What does that mean? And how, as a teacher, I can engage with that? So this is what's come up. And what it is telling us is that, as Sucheta said earlier, this could be a real opportunity for us, that we don't take these systemic inequities with us when schools reopen. Let's use this moment of the pause, of the stillness, to reimagine and repurpose education, and really go into this thinking of what could be our most compassionate offer to our children. And I'm going to invite Sucheta to take us into that thinking.
So, like Vishwan said, that it's in addition to the learning loss, it's really been this and Ellie used this word, unprecedented times that our young people are going through, and I can only imagine the level of anxiety and the level of grief also, because all of us are experiencing the loss of a world that we knew, the way we imagined our world to be, the kind of false notion we had about control itself, that we can control our life, we can predict our future. And for children to be suddenly thrown into such an such levels of uncertainty, we can only imagine what they're going through. And that's why we are really framing this as what can be the role of education in school in the middle of a crisis like this. And some of the things that we were asking, right, some important questions that we were asking, that are we just simply going to take our offline school models with its flaws, with its systemic inequities, and move it online? Are we just going to take our own anxiety, what we feel is, a learning loss, this is not happening, they're getting disconnected, they're not in school, and are we going to dump it on them? Or are we going to recognize that perhaps this is the most difficult lesson of their lives that they have learned, that while staying at home, while making sense of the unprecedented times, they're learning important life lessons. They're important life lessons around how to be in this world, how to respond to a future that is so unpredictable. So what if schools became that place that allowed our children to make sense of this world again? As young people come back to education systems, to school systems, what if schools are the spaces where children are given opportunities to build the resilience that can help them find normalcy again? What they need most right now is to be able to bounce back from this crisis. Can school be the place where they're given the opportunities to build this resilience? Physical distancing, social distancing is going to be the norm, at least for a few years, till we find a vaccine. So is that going to come in the way? Is that going to increase the differences that children see amongst themselves? Or are we going to teach our children that our interconnectedness is a cause for celebration and it's not something to be feared? What if school became the place where their well-being is the most important outcome? Above all else, we care most about how our children are doing and how they're feeling. What if school systems across the world chose to invest in healing, in compassion this year, and we let go of the anxiety of completing an outdated syllabus? What if instead of examinations based on rote learning, we asked our students, do you know how to be kind to each other? Do you know how to take decisions that are good for you and your community and the planet? Do you know how to collaborate? Do you know how to celebrate the success of others? Do you know how to heal? So these were our what if, right? We're calling them the what if statements. They are our imagination, that as we were thinking about as we were thinking about our response to this crisis, that's where this what if came from. And I would invite us now, for all of us, to take this pause and think of our own what if. So I'm just going to invite you to go through a few steps so that we can take a moment, take a pause, and come up with our own imagination of what could be different in this new world. So if you all have your books and pens, if I can invite you to just take one fresh page out of your books, just take a new page and just divide it into 4, right? Just 4 parts, one page just into 4 parts. And in each of these parts, just give a title. So the first part is our mental or our mind, right? So mental. The second is physical, our body. The third is emotional, our emotions and everything that comes up for us. And finally, spiritual, our spirit itself, which gives us hope, which shows us our interconnectedness. So if you have these 4 quadrants, mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional, and just make a list, right? So the invitation is to just, again, we'll, after I finish my instructions, we'll take a moment to take some deep breaths and think about our own experience when this crisis hit, when this pandemic hit. What were some of the things that came up for us? And it could be certain thoughts you had. It could be certain emotions that came up. It could be certain spiritual insights you had. It could be a physical sense of feeling trapped. So let's just take a moment and think about, the last 2-3 months and what have been some of these experiences, thoughts, emotions that have come up for us. And then I'll take us forward from there. So just take a moment, go into yourself, take a few deep breaths. In your own lives, the pandemic has created its own options. What are some of the things that have come up for you? And as you think about this, just start making a list on your paper, right? Just a list, something, maybe you felt trapped. You can put it in the physical. Maybe you had an insight about how we are all interconnected. You could put it in the spiritual. Maybe you felt angry, frustrated. You could put it in the emotional. Maybe you had thoughts about how you want to be a different type of human being and new way that you want to be in the world. Maybe you were thinking about the climate, some thoughts that you were having.
Maybe you're missing friends and family.
Yeah, right. So it doesn't matter, the category doesn't matter, but this is just a prompt, just a list of everything that's coming up for you. It can be just one word. Nobody else is going to see that list. It's just for you. It could be certain sentences. Just a way for us to process our own experience and what happened to us. So right now we are not doing any of the what if, right? We're just making sense of our own experience. So when you think about your mental state, your physical state, your emotional state, or your spiritual state over these last few months, what are some of the things that are coming up? Just fill up the page with everything that you can think of, any emotion that is coming up for you. any spiritual connections you have made, how your body has felt. Just let it flow. From your body, it's going into the paper. Just let it freely flow. You can even just move to writing about it, let go of the list, and you can just start writing about everything that's coming up. Just a freehand writing. And as you look at this list, and as this list is coming up for you, you can take a fresh page, or you can continue writing where you are. But what is the one thing that you had to let go? Something that you lost because of this pandemic. It could be something in your personal life or something that happened to you internally, or it could be something that happened in the world and you had to let something go. Was there anything that you had to let go, that you lost because of the pandemic? Just let your hand move, just write freely. No one else is going to see what you're writing. Let the words flow from your thoughts through your hand into the paper. Just let it go. And now I invite you to think about, did you also gain something? Did you learn something? Did you discover something in these last 3 months? Or since the lockdown, or since we've been in this crisis? Did you have a new insight? It could again be something personal. Maybe you learned something about yourself. Maybe you learned something about the world. Maybe you discovered something that you never imagined possible. Just let the words flow. as we process everything that we lost and some things that we gained, what for you, in terms of who you are, this was your experience, right? What you process right now was your unique experience of this crisis and what happened to you. And as you make sense of that and as your words are flowing, what is your most compassionate response to each other, to the world? What can you offer to everybody else who's going through something similar, who's experienced something similar? What can be your most compassionate offer to your peers, to your colleagues, to the world, and to yourself? And as you tap into your compassion, as you tap into your empathy, the invitation is to think about if this same compassionate, empathetic person was to go into a classroom, if the same change of empathy and compassion we could make in our education system, what could it be? We are all educators here. We are all working in the education system. We all have relationships with young people. What can be our most compassionate response to them? And this time at your individual level, but also at a systemic level. How can the education system itself respond with more compassion to our students? Yes, thank you for all the comments. This too shall pass. I would like to offer positivity, support, yes. And what will that mean for education? What if the role and purpose of education was to support our young people? What if the role of education was to provide lots of love to our students? What if we prioritized emotional well-being? What if we really listened to our children? What if we gave them guidance? What is your what if statement? So there's about 150 of us, and I would invite all of you to share your what if statements on the chat. We'll take about 5 minutes. When you think about a reimagined education system that can respond with compassion and empathy to our students, what is your what if? Yes, what if young people are given the opportunity to restructure the education system? What if we give our children our undivided attention? What if we let children be who they are, more than who we want them to be? Beautiful. Keep it flowing. What is your what if offer for our students? I invite the others to read what's coming up on the chat. Some beautiful what if statements. Read.
This is pretty amazing, everything that's coming. What if children lead us through compassion and courage? What if classroom was not the only place of learning? What if we had no gender disparity, no comparison, no labels? What if every child had a choice? What if classroom is no longer confined to the four walls? What if we let children ask as many questions as they want? What if we show children what is the kindest human? What if we learn from children?
As much and more.
What if we ask teachers what is the purpose of education? What if they had freedom to be generous? What if we can? What if learning could be about life and how to live? Wow, it's like a cascade, it's like a waterfall. It's beautiful to just see these what if statements jumping at our screen. Oh, I can't even keep up anymore.
Yeah. What if academics didn't decide a child's worth? Absolutely. What if we break barriers between students and teachers? Yeah, let's turn it upside down.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I think our invitation really was to open the floodgates of possibility, floodgates of imagination. And while we are all experiencing the sense of grief and loss, a sense of collective grief and loss in the midst of this pandemic, we could also collectively create a sense of possibility for all our children in our country. And that's really the invitation. What if we can reimagine what education can be, could be? So this is just the beginning. My colleague Vikram has shared the campaign that we have launched. It's called What If. There's a website. Maybe Vikram can share it again. It's a community campaign. No one owns it. It's not a Dream a Dream campaign. And we're inviting people, parents, young people, educators, teachers, school leaders, policymakers, anyone who's deeply invested in children and children's success, to take this idea of a what if and take it into our own spaces. Talk about it to our children as parents, talk about it to our colleagues and peers, write open letters to government officials and policymakers, write to school leaders, talk to parents, different ways for anyone to engage with this idea of a what if campaign. It's a global campaign. In fact, there's a group of educators in Latin America who have launched this campaign in Spanish. And we want this campaign to become a global movement calling for a repurposing of education and really a move away from stress-driven education to a more well-being, compassion, kindness-driven education. And that's really the invitation. And today you are part of this global movement. We'll probably bring it to a close here. Suchita has another poem she wants to share, and then we can open it up for questions or reflections.
Just reading your what if suddenly just reminded me of this song. It's a song by Maria Carpenter, and we'll share the link with you. You could listen to it on YouTube, but this is the lyrics of that song itself. The name of the title of the song is Why Shouldn't We? And with that we'll close this session. Why shouldn't we? We believe in things that we cannot see. Why shouldn't we? Why shouldn't we? Hands that heal can set a chained man free. Why shouldn't we? Why shouldn't we? We believe in peace within every heart. Why shouldn't we? Why shouldn't we? Burning brightly, brightly in the dark. Why shouldn't we? Why shouldn't we? So come on, darling, feel your spirits rise. Come on, children, open up your eyes. God is all around. Buddha's at the gate. Allah hears your prayers. It's not too late. We believe in things that make us all the same. Why shouldn't we? Why shouldn't we? Love belongs to all, in deed and name. Why shouldn't we? Why shouldn't we? We believe in things we are told that we cannot change. Why shouldn't we? We had heroes once and we will again. Why shouldn't we? So come on, darling, come on, children. God is all around. Buddha's at the gate. Allah hears your prayers. It's not too late. Why shouldn't we? Why shouldn't we? Why shouldn't we? Why shouldn't we? Thank you. Thank you again, everybody. And now we'll open it up for questions.
Or reflections.
Yeah, questions or reflections.
Thank you so much. I don't know what to say. I was just thinking when discussing in the group. It's just a feeling webinar. It's a lot of feeling happening, not like a knowledge as such. It's a lot of thinking and reflection. Even I made notes in the notebook. It's a good time to just sit back and just think. Even the coloring activity as well. Thank you so much for that. We have a few questions on the Q&A space. Yeah. The first one is how to spread awareness of emotional and mental well-being and regulation, especially with marginalized communities, considering the lack of access to these communities and their struggles to meet daily needs.
I think somewhere, what I hear in this question, there's a certain underlying kind of subtext that I hear that when we think about emotional well-being or when we think about life skills, in a way it comes, secondary to challenges and difficulties that young people face. Now, I fully accept that you need your basic necessities met, right? Before we can think about anything in the realm of well-being or life skills, we do need our basic necessities of just having access to food and having access to shelter and, those necessities met. But beyond that, if we really want to help, especially children from marginalized communities, deal with the challenges of life, if we need to build in them the skills to be able to be resilient because life is so difficult for them, because they've constantly, in systems or in spaces where they're getting abused or they're getting violated or their rights are not being recognized, that is exactly the reason why we must focus on their life skills and, the whole holistic development of young people. So I would invite us to think about it like that, right? That if we recognize that for children from marginalized communities, it's more important that we build in them the life skills to overcome the adversity that we are facing. Because they are entering this unpredictable future and they don't have a supportive environment, plus they don't have the life skills to respond to it. They're just going to get left behind more and more. So let's not think of it as linear. Let's not look at it as, let's first do this, first get them to school, first get them to learn, and then we'll do life skills, but recognize that life skills is foundational and build awareness from that, right? That is the awareness we need to build. And that is how we need to recognize that it's so much more important for children from marginalized communities.
Yeah, I just want to add the aspect of the how. In fact, many organizations, non-profit organizations, especially in the last 1 decade or so, have designed curriculums, pedagogical approaches, interventions focused on life skills and social emotional learning. There are many tools out there now and many organizations doing that. So it is becoming more mainstream. Globally, there's already a recognition. In fact, OECD, which does the PISA test, which has traditionally focused on English and mathematics, is completely transforming PISA to also include aspects of social emotional learning. They are reimagining the purpose of education to be focused on well-being, and then looking at the transformative competencies that students will need to be better prepared for an uncertain, complex future. So this conversation is happening. There are toolkits available. There are pedagogy is available. Yeah.
Thank you so much. There's one question. Okay, so why just kindness and not any other value? Like we mentioned, kindness in this time. Why specifically kindness and not any other value?
So kindness was just what we chose when we were thinking about our own what if, and you've seen the articles and all of that. So kindness was what came up for us. But the campaign itself has evolved over the last few months, and we are saying that kindness is the new normal is one of the approaches to this, but it's really more about the reimagination, right? It's really the what if is the reimagination, and if kindness is the one that calls out to you, and that's kind of the pattern or the trend we're seeing, but not at all necessary for it to be that. Whatever is your value and your call, allow that to lead you.
So give you an example. There is an entrepreneur in Europe who's taking this whole what if idea to business entrepreneurs and CEOs and saying, what if we reimagine the way we do business? What if we do business from a space of trust and transparency, and always making choices from looking at what's good for the planet? So she's taking it in that level, in that sense. So kindness is the opening, and that's what was drawn for Dream, as Suchita said. But people are engaging with the what if possibility in many different ways.
Perfect. Thank you so much. There is a factual question, like what is a global institute? You mentioned global institute, and what is that? Ankita has asked.
Yeah, so I was talking about the OECD, which is the Organization for Economic Development and Cooperation. They are the ones who do something called a PISA test, PISA, which is done in, I think, about 70 odd countries every 3 years, which is focused on mathematics and reading and writing skills, specifically for 15-year-olds. And from that, they then recognize which country is doing well in education and academics. India did it, I think, in 2009, and they were at the bottom. So they stopped doing it, but India is going to do it again in 2021. And the 2021 PISA is specifically also going to have aspects of social emotional learning.
There are two other questions which are like quite connected, mostly covering the mental health aspect. So if you look at even parents or teachers, even students, in this point of time, mental health might be an issue. How do they overcome this? So what can we do in terms of addressing this and helping children and parents to cope up with this?
I think the recognition that, yes, mental health is going to become a priority now. It is. I think all of us would be experiencing through the last 3 months multiple emotions, right from confusion to grief to anger to frustration to hopelessness to helplessness to distress to stillness to calm, right? And India as a country is not very well equipped to deal with this mental health challenges that we might be experiencing. I think with children, specifically parents, teachers, what they can do is, especially what we're talking about, that, when schools reopen, don't jump onto syllabus.
You can still hear us?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So don't focus on syllabus. Don't start pushing students to catch up to syllabus. Don't operate from a space of panic or stress. Help children reconnect. Help children reconnect to themselves. Help children reconnect to their friends and peers and colleagues, and help children reconnect to the world. Can we design specifically sessions using art, using music, poetry, song, drama, to help children make meaning of what they've experienced? And in that meaning making is where healing will happen, and then we move on to mental health and not mental problems. Uh, Again, there are many organizations out there who are now designing sessions. Dream a Dream is also designing sessions to help teachers reintegrate back into the school system, because teachers have also going through their own mental health challenges through this pandemic, especially if you look at affordable private schools. Many teachers are anxious about losing their jobs, about not getting a salary. So when they do start coming back into the system, we need to find a way to help teachers heal, and then through their healing, then help students heal.
Thank you. There's one more question that Vikram has marked answering live, and I think we can close out after this, also giving our participants some time to reflect, close out, type in their closing thoughts in the chat box. So last question is, how do we take the existing life skills curriculum over online platform, considering the need of human intervention for life skills? So what would be the best way to reach out with this curriculum to the marginalized communities?
I think, so a couple of things I will say. One is, I think what Sucheta actually came up with as an insight. So it's really her words, that we should not think about taking content online. Taking an offline content online is not going to work. We need to design interventions that work in an online world, which is a very different approach, right? So a design of a workshop like this, right? A webinar like this, right? Traditionally, what we've done in the offline world, we no longer do seminars. We've stopped doing seminars long back. We do fireside, we do panels, we do workshops. But now in the online world, we've suddenly started doing webinars, not realizing that webinar is just another name for a seminar, which no one really engages with. Right? So it's not about transferring content online, but redesigning interventions in an online space. So using tools that we've used, whether it's tools for coloring, whether it's tools for polling, right, which builds that sense of engagement, creates voice in the system. So that's one, I think we have to redesign for that. Second, you're right, in marginalized communities, it is very difficult to take in online solutions, and we shouldn't attempt to. However, we could turn some of our assumptions upside down. So something that we have seen, for example, with many young people, they are in community classrooms. A lot of our alumni, for example, who live in those same communities, who were supposed to be in college, are running community classes in their neighborhoods for younger children. They're doing art, they're doing play, they're just engaging with them, helping children get more, better, accurate, clear information about COVID, just being there for them, listening to them, creating helplines for children to call, and an IVR-based helpline where you could call back a number and for children to just talk about their emotions and the stress and distress they might be feeling, or just wanting to feel reconnected with someone again. So decentralizing interventions in the community, trusting parents, trusting teachers who are living in the community, trusting youth in the community to take charge of some of these interventions for children, and then giving more agency and more tools to these people in the communities. So again, letting go of that, we have to find a solution. We have to do something. Actually, we don't know what to do. Honestly, we don't know what to do, because we're sitting very comfortably at home in a very privileged environment, right? So give more agency to young people in the community. We had this group of young people, alumni, who started doing videos and then started sharing these videos on WhatsApp about COVID information. And through that, then reaching out to children and engaging with children. So that's as far as I think I would go.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I think we've covered almost all the questions, most of the questions connected to this. Also thinking if all the participants can take some time to just pause and think about the key takeaway or top of mind reflections from this last 1.5 hours that we have had. If you can type it in the chat box, take some time, think about it. And if you can all type it in the chat box, we can also see and read each other's reflections. So just take 2 to 3 minutes to do that. For me, I think personally, my one question was that what did I gain? I think through this pandemic, everyone asked what do you lose, like what are the problems, what are you facing? But what did I gain? I think kind of shifted the entire question. I could just think of at least 3 things that I think I gained. I never expected anything to come up with, but I think that is one thing I'm definitely taking away from this session. Requesting all our participants to just think and type it in our chat box.
Thank you for sharing. No.
You take 1 or 2 minutes to type in your reflections. You have a lot of reflections coming up, very interesting thoughts. Thank you so much, everyone. Just keep your thoughts coming in as we quickly close this session out. I would really like to thank Sucheta and Vishal for being here and for leading this wonderful session. I felt like being in a learning circle. Thank you so much. Can you also quickly share your thoughts about this webinar, how you felt, your suggestions, feedback, anything?
I think it's to kind of re-emphasize what Vishal was saying, that for us it was important that when we moved online, we were able to take the same sense and the experience that we were creating in the offline world to the online world. So in a way, all that we tried here today is our own experiments, our own explorations of can we ignite something like this in the online world. And just this response has given me so much more confidence and so much hope, and really the sense of possibility with the responses, with the engagement, and most importantly, with the imagination that was invited. I can really feel that a space was created, and field of imagination and creativity and compassion was created. So thank you so much for everybody who participated and were so generous in being a part of this.
I'm feeling grateful, grateful for, yes, this space that was created by all of us together. I can tell you, I've struggled with my own sense of well-being over the last 3 months, gone through my own emotional turmoil, up and downs, and sense of helplessness. So I know this is not going to be easy for all of us, and it's not going to be definitely easy for our children. So our invitation really is kindness. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think that summed up everything, just to be kind. Thank you so much, and thank you participants for being very active and engaging and sharing all your reflections. Our next webinar is scheduled to take place on July 9th, Strengthening WASH Systems in Schools, Preparedness and Response Towards COVID-19 with ACOSAN. So please keep looking out for emails in your inboxes from FIDCI. Also, before you leave, please share your feedback on this webinar. It will help us definitely to improve, and next time when we do webinars, or anything that we can do differently. So we have added the feedback form in the chat box. So please take 2 minutes to just fill that. Also, to reach out to our speakers after the webinar, you can write to sucheta@dreamadream.org and vishal@dreamadream.org. We'll be putting everything in the chat box. You can also check the website. Again, the details will be put up in the chat box. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great evening and be kind, definitely, as always.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone who came in today. Really appreciate this space and this opportunity.